I would say just write. If you don't write, you don't finish. And if you don't finish, then you don't have a book. So writing is the first thing to do, and it's the last thing to do.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I am your host, Michael Vadney. I'm sitting here with a brand new guest to the YouTube sphere, Stephen T Boers, author of the Ruination Games series. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. Yeah.
Of course. I'm glad you could come on. We've been interacting online for a while, and I finally picked up your book, and I was honestly really surprised how much I enjoyed it. It was a really fun adventure that pulled out of a lot of things in my own life that I really enjoyed, like playing Smash Brothers and video games and hanging out with my friends. Not the being in a life or death situation. Hopefully I'm not in that anytime
you haven't done
soon.
that yet.
But
we'll get there.
Not quite. I'm working on it. We'll see. But please, for people who may not be familiar with you or your books, tell them. Give them a blurb about what the Ruination Game is.
So the Ruination Game starts with a game of pawns, just here, if you can see that. It's a 7-book series in all, but the first 4 follow a character named Xander, and it's his journey of being abducted into this other world of life and death, having to fight for your life, given supernatural powers, alongside all these other people who have also been stuck in this world. And it's essentially a fight to the death. The last one standing wins. Anybody who loses gets resurrected to try again. And so it's Xander's journey trying to get back home.
I've read the first one. I didn't realize you already had it planned out that far to be exactly 7 books. The first 4 are going to follow Xander. Now I'm very curious what the heck happens at the end of book 4 that Xander is no longer our protagonist. Obviously, don't tell me too much. Spoilers.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit. Books 1 through 4
I appreciate it.
Are Xander's story. And then books 3 to 7, I'm sorry, 5 to 7, I can count, are actually Ceres's story.
What sparked your passion for writing? Like, was there a key moment or an experience that led you to decide, you know what, I'm ready for this stage in my life. I want to write a book. I'm going to do it.
I was never a reader growing up. I was much more of a gamer, which kind of shows in the book series. I've had ideas for stories since somewhere around middle school. I don't even know what year that is at this point. But I've never finished a book. I've started books occasionally. I just never finished them until I finished a game of pawns. So deciding to become an author was sort of me saying, oh, I have this idea. I'm not going to finish this book. Let me just write what is in my mind down, and then that'll be it, and I'll be done. And then it turned into, well, I keep having ideas for this, and now I want to, put the pieces together. And then I had a whole book, and then the process was just kind of fun, and I wanted to keep doing it, and ideas just flowed, and now I have a 7-book series plus 3 other books that are kind of in the works. So
wow, so you have 10 books kind of like in the process, at least mentally, and you're really burning through creating the various entries into the Ruination Games. Like, it feels like every other week I'm hopping online and you're like, the next book's coming out. I'm like, what? How are you done already?
So all 7 books were done before I started publishing them, at least the first drafts. And I just finished the first draft to a brand new series, not in the world of the Ruination Game. And I finished that on Friday. So, yeah, we're just kind of moving along, yeah.
I saw the post that you said you finished your first draft. I thought for sure it was for the next entry into the series, but this is something brand new. What made you decide, you know what, I'm going to write the whole series, at least one run through before starting the publishing game?
When I finished Pawns, I didn't know what I was doing, so I wanted to get it published, and I went through kind of a whole process. I went kind of the wrong avenue for a bit, and was going to pay I forget what they call them. There's a name for it. So I found a vanity house without realizing what it was. And I had gotten to the point where they sent me a contract, and I looked at it and I'm like, that's a lot of money. And I'd been in contact with my favorite author, who's Kevin Hearn, who writes the Iron Druid Chronicles. So I asked him, like, hey, is this normal? And he replied pretty much immediately back, no, you want an agent, or you can go self-publishing. So at that point, I went to, try to get an agent, gone through the process of querying everybody, and just got a bunch of rejections back. Thought, okay, let's move on. Let's write a different book. And so I was doing that, but there's always this lingering thing of like, I didn't finish the series. I need to finish the series. So I ended up writing more of the books, going back to A Game of Pawns, saying, well, this is actually not very good. So I'm making a bunch of edits. And long story short, I went self-publishing because I didn't feel very good about querying the same agents like 3 or 4 times, because at this point I had done it 2 or 3 times. This is the fault of not doing your research. But that's why my self-publishing was... I felt bad for the literary agents who had to deal with multiple iterations of my one book.
That's really cool that you've been like talking to Kevin Hearn and kind of getting that like mentorship too. I've read his first book of the Iron Druid Chronicles and was really blown away. My dad loves that series. He's still working his way through it, both him and my grandma actually. So that's wild to me that you're just like, oh yeah, hey buddy, can you look at this for me? That's awesome.
Yeah, I found him on X years ago, and he just was really good to talk to, so that was great.
That's one of the things I really like about the book community in general, and I know this lesson already, but it constantly hits me over and over again, where it's like, authors are just people that like to talk about books. I've never ran into a situation where an author is like, oh, you're below me. Like, they're just cool people that just want to be like, oh, you like books? I like books. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and that's a really cool thing about the community.
You started writing this book. You just kept going throughout the series. You have all these first drafts now. How did you approach developing the initial concept for Ruination Game? Because you said you had written other stories before, but this one just stuck. And so what made it go the distance for you?
I think it was just that the ideas kept coming. I don't specifically think there was one particular thing that added up to, this is the one that's going to be it. The books I had previously tried to do, I still intend to do them at some point. But I had just gotten to a certain point and I got stuck and didn't know what to do. And so throughout the process of writing, the 10 books that I've done now, I now understand what to do when you're stuck is more often than not just push through. And so I think the way I went about A Game of Pawns was very... we'll do this part, and then we'll do that part, and maybe this one, and then we'll jumble them together at some point if we ever get there. I also think the pressure was off, right? I didn't expect to finish the book, and then I did. But yeah, the initial concept, though, I'm finding a lot of my books, at least the ones that I'm writing now, kind of stem from like video games. A Game of Pawns was... well, really, the whole Ruination game was inspired by Final Fantasy Dissidia. I don't know if you played that or not.
Not familiar with that one. I've played a lot of Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy Tactics is my favorite game of all time.
Dissidia is basically your fighting game. It's just, it takes all the characters into a pool and then you have a battle together or whatever. It was on the PSP originally.
Okay.
They did move it onto the console. But that version is not very good, in my opinion.
Okay, so a lot of your inspirations comes from video games then. Is that also true for this other series that you're working on that's not Ruination Games?
Yeah, that one is largely based on Kingdom Hearts, which I guess means I am very influenced by Square Enix.
I don't blame you. I know their stories can get like
It's a great series.
kind of convoluted, but at the same time, they put out some quality games with some emotional punch in those stories. That's actually something that I was very pleasantly surprised when I was going through A Game of Pawns, the first book in Ruination Game, is like it starts out as this is fun, this is exciting, I like what's happening here. It does have that video game feel. Xander, the main character, is very much, he's very relatable to a lot of people of our generation that grew up playing like Super Smash Brothers and other fighting games and like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. And I was pleasantly surprised that as I got further into the story, I was more than just having fun. There were some emotionally hard-hitting moments. Is there anything when you were writing your story that really surprised you? Like, wow, I have this in me to make.
With book one, I don't remember enough of that one to say one thing or another with it. It was like 10 years. It feels like it's been 10 years. I guess it's not quite that long, but I've been surprised by my story writing before. Book 5, I won't spoil anything, but there's something about Ceres that makes him a little more, I guess, let's say otherworldly. And I knew I had to have a reason for that beyond the excuse that I give him within the books. But it really came together during book 5 when it just sort of happened naturally. And the reasoning for why he's as good as he is and why, even his eye colors the way it is, it came together and it fit really well with what I was trying to do for book 5. So that was the one thing that surprised me that sticks out the most.
Yeah, after writing, I guess, 10 books, which, Jesus, great job. After writing 10 books, I bet your process has changed a lot. I know we're going to dig a little more into this for next week's topic, where we're going to be talking about plotters versus pantsers and such. But can you give us like a brief overview about how different your process for creating a book is now that you've gone from your first book to your 10th?
It's changed almost book to book, I would say. Excuse me. A Game of Pawns, like I said, was sort of this sporadic, let's write this scene and then this scene, and we'll figure out where they connect, or jumble up. And then from that point on, I've gotten in the habit of writing from point A to point B being the beginning and then the end. But there's definitely been various levels of plotting versus pantsing, and where I pantsed most of books 1 through 6 even. Book 7 was 100% plotted. And there's just been... I've just tried things. I think that's something important for an author to do is, reach outside yourself, expand, and then grow with the new experiences.
Oh yeah, especially when you're like new to the game, you don't know what your style is, you don't know what you're good at and you're bad at, so you kind of just have to throw yourself all over the place and see what happens, see what sticks, what feels good, and what isn't so great that you need to work on. Are there any specific themes or ideas that you find yourself exploring again and again in your work, like that draws you to it?
Initially, I didn't think about themes at all until I had been doing research and like, oh, books have themes. That's a good point. And then I would look back and say, what theme does my book have? And just assuming that it's there. And I did find a theme, I think, which has to do with, community can be found and fostered even in difficult times. And I think that has sort of influenced my writing throughout all of my stories. Because there is this sense of community where you need to bring people together and work together, and it heals you. It makes the hard times not as hard. Yeah, I think it's an uplifting kind of thought.
Yeah, that's very much like the found family trope, which is very popular. Like a lot of people will actively seek out books. So like, oh, you have a found family in there? Gimme. So, good move.
Solid. Got the check mark. We're all good.
So how did you create a compelling and authentic characters that did resonate with your readers? Like I said, when I was reading through the first book, Xander, like I read Xander and I was like, yeah, that was me in my early 20s. And I feel like a lot of people will resonate with that. How did you manage to capture that into a bottle with multiple of your characters?
Well, thanks, first of all, because I'm glad you resonated with my characters.
100%.
I think a lot of the characters in the Ruination game, you sort of pull out pieces of yourself and form them through who you are in some degree, So Xander was kind of a, like the Luke Skywalker character, where he's a fill-in for the audience that's reading him, right? Sort of absorbing everything that's happening. But he has his morals, which are obviously coinciding with mine a little bit, at least. And so I think it's just you need to stick to your character and figure out what are their morals, what are they trying to do, what are they wrong about, which I love making Xander wrong, which is my favorite thing in the books. And just exploiting that, right? And so I think as far as the Ruination game goes, a lot of the characters, in my opinion, are somewhat similar, right? There's differences, but at their core, they have a lot. There's a common theme, and I've definitely learned through writing some other books where I've pushed further away from like like a core element. I think those characters are a bit more like of their own. Not to say that the Ruination game has bad characters, but I do think I've improved my writing when it comes to characters in that sense. But mostly it's just staying true to who the character is. And I think the idea of like everybody will have somebody that becomes a friend to them, right? And that whether that's real world or book world, as long as it seems real, then you're good. Hopefully that's not too much of a ramble.
Not at all. Like I've had people go on for very long, and I like it when my guests ramble because it makes my job very easy. If I can just sit here and listen to you drop some wisdom on me. So I ain't mad about it. Really, that's what you want when you're writing a story, and in your writing career. I've talked about this a few times on different episodes. Like, I genuinely hope for you that your first book is the worst book you ever write, because you're always going to get better the more you do it, the more you write, and the more you intentionally try to improve your craft. And that makes sense. So it makes sense that your character work will be better the more you go into it.
As I've been writing, I would go back to the previous books that I've written and, see all the errors and then say, okay, well, I need to fix these. Since they're not published yet, I can do that. Which has helped, I think, A Game with Pawns a whole lot, because that thing's been through so many edits that I don't want to touch it anymore. But you'll always find that after a book or two, if you go back to your first one, you're gonna find ways to improve it, and that's just you growing, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's true of like anybody of any craft. You will always be able to look back and be like, you know what, I could have done that better, and this is how I would have done that now. And you just have to move on and just keep going, pumping out new stories, and they'll always be better. You just got to keep going. Something that I did want to kind of circle back on, though, is you have multiple books out at this point. You've worked on 10 at least of the first draft. How long have you, like, when did Ruination Game first start? How long is that time period from you finished the first draft of a game of pawns to now?
I was looking at this the other day, and I believe that I opened the document for a game of pawns in 2018. But I also know that I had done multiple blank documents. So I don't know if that's the original first one or if that's just the one that ended last. So I believe I finished the book around a little bit before COVID. And then COVID hit and I wrote book 2 in like, I don't know how long, like 4 or 5 months, let's say.
So you're pumping through these books pretty quickly. Do you have any advice for anyone who is trying to write faster? Because I know some of us are pretty slow. As I look over at my debut, that's running on 4 years at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's consistency. I am a pretty quick typer, but if I wasn't consistent at writing, then I wouldn't get it done. And I think it's also okay to take breaks. Like, consistency doesn't necessarily mean you don't take time off of it, right? I'm consistently going to work, but I do take vacations, right? So treating it like a job like that is, I think, a good way to look at it. And as far as, getting a lot done in a day, I like getting a lot done. I keep a record of what my top score essentially is for word count. And I'm pretty happy with it right now. But there are days when I struggle to hit 100 words, and that's okay.
I love that you're gamifying your writing experience, and that becomes a motivation for you. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Very on brand for what you got going on.
Yeah.
So going through this process then, what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced as an author, and how did you overcome it?
It was getting stuck. Getting stuck is hard. Or I guess more accurately, getting out of getting stuck. So a lot of times it's just a matter of I don't know how to end this scene, or I don't know how to get to the next scene, or whatever. And that's what gets me stuck the most. Most of the time, it's fine, and I just need to push through. I think book 1 was the hardest one for me because I hadn't organized it in the right way. Well, not the right way, but a way that made sense to me. And so forming those was really difficult, getting from point A to point B. But at the same time, those hardships also make you grow. So the harder you work at it, the more struggles you have, the better of a writer you become, because then you can push through faster. You can navigate better. And so all in all, though, that's probably how I hit some of those high days.
No, I like that a lot. I like the way you phrased it, like treating it like work and everything. So, gotta stop saying so much. But anyways, you talked about a lot about like video games inspiring your work. It's a clear influence in like your story and the abilities that like various people can do. Are there any like authors or books or movies that you also see as a significant impact on your storytelling approach?
We talked about Kevin Hearn. His books have inspired me a lot. I have a way of, when I'm writing, especially if I'm having trouble with a spot, I'll sort of think, oh, how would Kevin Hearn write this? Or how would, J.K. Rowling write this? And not that I write like them, but having that mentality of that gives me sort of a way to get through. And then in editing, I'll see, oh, that sounds weird, so I'll fix it. But getting through is the hard part. So if that helps you, then, great. And yeah, that helps me. So, but I don't know if that was quite the answer you were looking for.
Oh no, you're fine. You're doing great. Like I said, there are no wrong answers here. The points don't matter. It's like whose line. We're just having a conversation.
Great.
So we've talked, damn it, I did it again. We've talked about how you are pumping through these books at like a really good pace, a good clip. How do you manage to balance between like the writing and your other personal responsibilities, like work, taking care of your family, making sure that you're staying in touch with your friends and such? How do you balance all of that?
Well, for me, family comes first, right? And then everything else there just falls into whatever category it needs to, depending on time, right? I do write a lot for like during my lunch break. And then whenever I get sort of inspiration throughout the week, I'll tell my wife, give me 10 minutes, and then I'll write in like bullet point form, whatever I was thinking. I think also just being able to, so my job lets me kind of listen to things while I work. And so I'll put my book into a text-to-speech like program thing, and I'll listen to it while I'm working so that when I'm ready to write, I can just knock it out.
Nice. So that you're very ready to go. I recently discovered the text-to-speech kind of trick to, one, just getting through books that aren't actually audiobooks, but you want to listen to them, and two, for editing as well. That combined with, so I'm going through the final edits of my book, and the big thing that I'm doing right now is I'm reading it out loud to myself, and my editor is reading it out loud to me as we take turns with each other, of just going like, hey, let's make sure it sounds correct, it sounds accurate, it's as punchy as it can be. Just there's something about it hitting the ears that you have a better understanding of what you can do to improve it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. My wife and I go through the book once, and she'll read it to me, so I'll just listen to it, and yeah, things pop out to you that you don't see visually when you're reading or when you're writing.
Also, shout out to supportive wives who are making it possible for us to do this and helping us out, because my editor is my wife.
Yeah. See, they're the best, right?
She's great. Oh, 100%. 100%. Couldn't do this without them. So speaking of like getting feedback and working with people on all these things, how does feedback from like editors, beta readers, if you have a writing group or an audience, play in shaping your work as you continue with like your series and now your new series?
Yeah, that's a bit tough with readers because the books are, coming out anyway. So by the time I get feedback from readers, it's like, well, here's the next book, But as far as, beta readers, even alpha readers, ARC readers, and obviously my wife, I do get the feedback. And I usually have this period of time of I'll read the notes, and when it's my wife's notes, it takes a lot longer because she like writes a book worth of notes within a chapter. But yeah. But I'll read them and I'll get out the initial and then a few days or a week later I'll come back to them and I'll have more of a mindset of, okay, let's actually look at this and see if this is how do I need to fix this kind of thing. Yeah. Or do people have completely different opinions on it for that matter?
No, I love the way you describe that. Just that initial gut reaction of like, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like get that out of your system and you're like, you know what? You kind of have a good point here. This could be better.
Yeah. Whenever my wife reads the book to me, she'll point out things occasionally. And my initial gut reaction often is, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hear that. A very similar thing happens in my kitchen most nights this week.
Yeah.
So did you work with like a writing group or anything, or were you mostly writing this in kind of like this solitary silo of just like yourself and maybe your wife a little bit?
Yeah, I had gone through several different things. So I looked for some critique partners. I did join a writing group through Wattpad at one point, which I have mixed feelings with, just structurally with how that works. It's great for certain things, and then I don't know how far into that I want to go, but I found that the group that I was involved with was not for me, which is fine. And, you try to look for other groups, but critique partners is a lot easier to get through. I did start doing that more often. But anyway, I did look for somebody because I did want an outside ear in on the book as well.
Yeah. Did you ever end up finding someone and making that like ongoing relationship?
I do have one person that I found through X, and that has been fantastic and also a little disheartening at times. But overall, really great.
No, that makes sense. I feel like that's how getting feedback should feel like.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yes, it's happening. No, I hope it was better.
Yeah.
No, and you make a good point with like sometimes a writing group isn't going to be the right fit for you. Sometimes this partner isn't going to be the best fit for what you're trying to write and the story that you're trying to tell. And I think it's okay to, kind of test the waters and, date a little bit before you really settle on like, you know what, this is the person that's going to help me improve to the best of my ability. And it's good that you had I would say, the courage to leave a group that was not good for you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There's the dating around analogy you made is very accurate, right? Because out of all the writers in the world, only so many of them finish a book, for one thing. Those who do finish don't always publish, and then of those people, you never know kind of what you get. You get a mixed bag of different levels, right? And sometimes it's hard to know where you're at until you see where somebody else is at.
Oh, 100%. I think it was Brandon Sanderson that said something along the lines of like, if you publish a book, you are much closer to Brandon Sanderson's level than millions of people that set out to be authors. Because like that is the first biggest hurdle is, can you finish a book? Because like you were saying earlier, you have several stories that you started and didn't finish. I know I have a few, some I'm very ashamed of, and that maybe I'll improve someday. But as long as you can finish a book, you have succeeded beyond the wildest dreams of millions of people, and you should be proud of that. And now you're like at 10. That's amazing. So cool, man.
Thanks. Quality isn't always consistent, I think. As far as like, even my books, I think, there's baselines, and then one book is like, wow, I really knocked it out of the park. And then the next one's like, that was fine, but it's all good. If you finish a book, you should be proud.
Most definitely. So an interesting question that I wanted to ask that I've started throwing into these interviews is, if you could recommend one book to anybody, what would that book be?
I'll try not to do a Kevin Hearn one, but everybody should read the Iron Druid Chronicles, all of them. I really like... no, I'll do this one instead. There's a book series called Magic 2.0. And if you only read one book, just read the first one, which is called Off to Be the Wizard. It's by Scott Meyer. And it's funny. It's lighthearted. It's just kind of fun. It's about a guy who finds a computer program that can alter the world, and he ends up going back in time because he's chased by the police. And he finds like a whole group of people who have also traveled back in time to become wizards in ye olden time. And so it's just a lot of crazy fun that they do there. So that one.
That sounds like a fantastic romp.
Yeah, I like it.
final question as we're nearing towards the end of our time on this first episode that we're having you. What advice would you share with aspiring authors who are beginning their own writing journey? At this point, you're pretty deep into it yourself. You're very far along the path. And we have these group of people that are looking at the beginning and go, "Hail, traveler, please tell us your secrets."
Yeah, well, I'll try not to stand too tall here, right? I would say just write. If you don't write, you don't finish. And if you don't finish, then you don't have a book. So writing is the first thing to do, and it's the last thing to do. And, there's ways to get better at it. But start just writing. That's all it is.
No, that's solid. Like, I think a lot of people really forget that in order to actually get a book, you need to write the book.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, too, also get stuck, right? And so they get discouraged when they get stuck. I know I did when I was writing a lot of the early stuff that I didn't finish. And so, if I just wrote anyway, who knows where we'd be.
Oh, facts. Like, the easiest way I get out of my slumps is just sit down and write anything. I have a very distinct memory of, I'm in a coffee shop. I've been stuck for like 2-3 weeks, unable to like get past this one scene. And all I did was just start describing my empty coffee mug and how like the coffee foam is at the bottom of it. And just from there, it got the grease going on all the gears, and the thoughts were churning out, and finally words were hitting the page, and all you had to do was write about anything.
Sometimes that's all it takes. I know not that long ago, I got stuck and was like, oh man, I haven't even written 300 words yet today. And I was like, let's just get to 300 and then we'll be good. And the next time I looked, I was past 1,000. And then I was like, I can keep going. And so I think I ended around 2,200 words or something like that. So you can definitely turn a bad day into a good one just by keeping going.
That is a solid writing session, especially when you were only expecting to get to 300 words that day.
Yeah.
Good job on that one.
Yeah, thanks.
But yes, Stephen, thank you for coming on to the show today. Could you tell the people, one, where can they find you? And two, where can they find your books?
You can find me hiding from the world in my home. So don't come knocking. But if you have to find me, I'm sometimes on X. That's really the only place I'm at consistently. So X, and then you can find my books on Amazon or Audible. And yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Stephen, again, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And folks, we are going to have Stephen back on next week as we're going to be talking about Pantser versus Plotter. Now remember, until next time, let's be author adjacent together. See you, folks.
How do you think of that?